Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10. You're here with JP and Caleb on a nice, beautiful, hot Sunday night. What's up, my bro?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay, man. Just weeding through all the craziness of Tyreek Hill and contracts and OTAs and just seeing, it's been a somewhat off, slow time, but then you got little things like that come up that
hmm
make you do a podcast.
Yeah, it's been very interesting just kind of looking at the day as a whole because looking at all the stuff that's happening, it's like there's a little slow periods and then all of a sudden, boom, three, four, five stories hit, and it's like, well, here we go again, and then it's like
Yeah.
the downward spiral. But training camp will be about a little bit in a month, about a month and a week away, so we're almost there. So
Yep.
just gotta keep getting through it, man. But I don't want the summer to end, so
I know
just
it.
kind of enjoying it while I can.
I know it. Well, so the Tyreek Hill podcast, we might as well talk about it really quick
hmm
because there were some things said that he said that, about him not being able to leave to go see his grandfather during a surgery, and he wanted to be targeted more than 111 times. Um, I guess I'm confused on some of that. I don't know. What do you think?
So just kind of a couple points. The first one, when it comes to being targeted, I understand he wanted to get targeted more, but Tyreek Hill, number one, had the most receptions on the team. I think he had the most yards and the most receiving touchdowns. And honestly, he also led the team in drop passes, which were interceptions. I think he
Yeah.
gave up one pick six on the season. That's neither here or there. I understand that he was frustrated. He gave a good example against the Baltimore Ravens week 2. He had 3 catches for 14 yards. That's going to happen sometimes. And I see where he's coming from. He wanted to get the ball more. And what I'm trying to say is when you have a player that dynamic like Tyreek Hill, you should give him a screen, a jet sweep, something quick, a slant if you can. But the issue is that when you're going against a team like the Ravens, they're going to overcompensate on him. And that's going to leave a
Yes.
guy like Kelsey. That's why Kelsey went off. That's why we saw other guys do really well that game.
Yeah.
So those things are going to happen. But it seemed like he wasn't happy with his role at certain times. And I see where he's coming from, where, yeah, you should get the ball maybe a little bit more. But you got other guys on the team. And plus, you led the team in receptions and touchdowns. So I'm kind of confused on what his really benefited from the season. And I don't know if he has this understanding differently, but it seems like he's not putting himself above the team. And I know he didn't complain, but it seems like he wants to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, he's one of the greatest wide receivers I've ever seen personally, but I feel like this team now, the Chiefs are going to be just fine without him. And then when it comes to the situation where I guess he wanted to leave, I believe it was for his grandfather's surgery. I really didn't understand that context from the podcast. So whatever JP and I say, we're just kind of going off what we remember. It seemed like he wanted to leave for, I think his grandfather had some type of cancer-like surgery, and he wanted to leave. And according to him, Andy and them did not really want him to leave. So I really don't know what to say about that situation because that doesn't sound like Andy, but I wasn't there. He was there. Andy was there. I don't know who else was there. But what it seems like there's some undercurrent issues throughout the entire season. And I believe there was more, obviously he didn't talk about on his podcast, that went ahead and kind of made him feel like, I don't want to be here. Plus, also, he's kind of frustrated to the point that the Chiefs aren't wanting to pay him all that money, but they're able to trade him to another team that would pay him, but they get the compensation. But this harsh reality is that's the business in the NFL. As much as it sucks, that's just the business. What do you think, JP?
I don't know. I think he's kind of, I don't know. I try to say this without being rude, but he's condescending in a way because there's so many things that he did for the team and the team did for him throughout his issues, and whether they were real or not, which they weren't, but regardless, at that time anyway, it's kind of condescending. And to say that Tua has a better arm than Mahomes is more accurate that was a ridiculous statement. I mean, that was just wrong. I understand he's trying to pump up his guy and all that shit, but come on, man, have respect for the best quarterback in the league.
And he said he was Tua's 10 Matt Moores. And I see where he's coming from, but it's kind of like, come on, man. Yeah, I think Tua is good, and I think he benefited greatly off of Bama's roster in the college ranks. In the NFL, it's a different story. I think Tua can play, but I think to see that, I mean, I know Mahomes, and people are probably gonna get mad at me. I don't know if you agree with me with this, JP, but Mahomes sometimes wasn't always accurate per se. The ball would be behind him, certain players, but at least it would be there.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been several times where plays happen because Mahomes didn't get like right there. If you're looking, he didn't like get around. He's got like cut off the side where he knew his receiver could get it. And I understand where he's coming from, but it's like, come on, man. Tua really can't be throwing the D ball all like that.
No,
it's just not gonna happen unless Tua surprises us, which I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't see. I'm not understanding why Tyreek Hill is coming from that understanding or his knowledge of the game when he's played with literally probably one of the greatest quarterbacks that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer by the end of it.
Yeah.
Just on his career alone, he can be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And not saying, so I was saying that Patrick Mahomes made him, but Tyreek Hill was doing great things to Alex Smith, and Patrick Mahomes elevated him a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't know where he's coming from. Also, I'm very confused, and especially to hear those thoughts, I'm like, man, I mean, it just makes no sense to me.
Well, and the crazy part is that he turned around and after the fact and said he wanted to retire a Chief.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's part of that stuff he's trying to boost up the podcast. I mean, that's probable.
Maybe.
But I think that's honestly some of the stuff he actually does feel. And some of the stuff he was saying, I'm like, that does not, like the Andy Reid situation, like that made no sense to me.
No. The
Target situation, that made no sense to me. And to be fair, too, Tyreek Hill has dropped a lot of passes this last season. Yeah. With all due respect, he has dropped a lot of passes.
And there was
has he had some big plays?
Out of his hands.
Yeah, 3 interceptions out of his hands. And you don't and also the injuries, JP, you've said that he's been dealing with injuries, a lot of leg issues, ankle issues, and that's not really good for a speed guy. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of the whole what he can do in Miami. Can he attain that success? I mean, the Dolphins have some weapons. I don't really know what they can do, but what I believe is going to happen is his numbers are going to dip. He's probably going to have some great games, but I think overall success as a whole, him is going to dwindle some. It may go to another level, but honestly, it's a business. The Chiefs traded him primarily because they didn't want to pay him $30 million a year. I don't blame them. They got 5 picks out of him, and that's just the business in the game. They traded him to a team that would.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's other things that I think, well, I know that are involved, and I'm not going to get into that at this point, but the Chiefs came close to what he wanted, and he still didn't take it. And, to start off saying I didn't want to leave the Chiefs in his excerpt on the podcast, I did not want to leave. I wanted to stay in KC. I love KC. And then to turn around and say he didn't want to be there because he was mad at Andy. He's just contradicting himself.
Yeah, he kept going back and forth. I'm like, this is too hard to follow.
Yeah, it's just too much. And it's almost like, I don't know. It's a strange situation. He kind of burned a bridge, unless he somehow, and maybe he's pissed off at Mahomes a little bit because Mahomes signed off on it. Who knows? I mean, there's so many different scenarios that could be construed from that whole thing. But it is what it is. We're moving forward, and we're still going to be better than Miami, no matter what. So they spent all that money to probably still not be nearly as good as I think the Patriots are still going to be better than them. I think the Bills will regress, but still be better than them. The Jets, who knows? I mean, it's such a trash organization. It's really hard to tell with them. And then, honestly, I don't like Miami's owners, so I don't know how that's going to work out well for him either. As far as, him saying, if the coach, if I want to go somewhere, or if I want to leave, the coach just said, go ahead. Well, if that coach is doing that on a whim, okay, I want to go play tennis, or I want to go get on my boat or hang out at my house, and the coach is letting him do that, then that's on the coach when he's not performing up to par.
And it sounded like he kind of is able to go when he needs to, which is understandable. Some players, I mean, he's proven. It just seemed like he did not want to be in the Kansas City system because Kansas City was doing a specific way, not to what the Patriots and Bill Belichick has done all these. The Chiefs have probably taken a step or two under that. Like, okay, you need to be here. This is camp, mini camp. You have to be here.
Yeah.
Mandatory camp. You got to be here. And I think, I don't know, because it goes to a situation where do I have to be here for mini voluntary OTAs? Like, do I need to, or is it actually mandatory where you go over those issues back and forth? Because, got certain players in the past will just not show up to them, which is understandable too. But when you look at both sides of the fence, I mean, he started off with saying he wanted to be in Kansas City, but then he said something made it seem like he did not want to be here. So it's kind of like, honestly, we will never probably really get the full story unless some 30 for 30 happens about the Kansas City Chiefs and they go on some crazy run.
Yeah. If I had my thoughts on it, I would say if anybody said he couldn't go anywhere, it would have been Bieniemy, but I wouldn't say that Andy would have said that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm not really for sure the whole, because when I heard that little spot in the podcast, I was like, I'm need more context, but it was like a 30 to 45 second clip of what that part was. So
yeah. Well, anyway. Okay, well, moving on. Orlando Brown. Kind of sounds like things are going to work out for him and the Chiefs. I'm kind of hearing some good news, and it looks like they're close to figuring it out. The only thing I will say is that I was told that if it's not figured out, he is playing on the tag, and they'll get it figured out before the end of next season.
Okay.
So, or into this season, I should say. So, but they're really confident that they're going to get it figured out, and which is a good thing for the Chiefs. We need him. I think it's he's so much of a force on that side, and he's gotten better at it. I mean, there's some people that contradict that statement, but I think he's gotten better overall throughout the season. Because again, he did switch sides, and he wanted to switch sides, and it started off to some people's standards a little bit lackluster, but compared to what we had, I thought he was like 100%. But
he played pretty well. Now, I would, if he were to go down with an injury, I would not be worried because Joe Thuney had to play at left tackle one game, did pretty well. Yeah. So if it came down to it, I wouldn't be scared. But they need to ink him in. They need to get him in for another 4 or 5 years. Bring him in, see what we can do. Because I think if they can get him pen to paper, get him here in Kansas City, I think it's going to work. Yeah. I don't see him want to go anywhere else. It's a winning culture. I mean, he's not doing what he had to deal with in Baltimore. Yeah. So, I mean, he's in a really good spot. So, I think the Chiefs will be fine. I really think that they could possibly get him signed long term.
I do too. And he loves Kansas City. And, there was Harold and Rob put out, and so did Matt McMillan, that Mahomes said that they were just hanging out, not even about football, just hanging out. And he told him how much he loved Kansas City and he wanted to stay and he was going to get it figured out. So I think that's a no-brainer for Kansas City, no matter how you look at it.
Oh yeah, it is. I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Rojo went to Texas, and he's going to do a kids camp, which I think is pretty cool.
Okay, that's good.
Yep, he's going to do a kids camp. I think ages 3 to 12, and they get to hang out with the pros and learn some techniques and do different things, which I think is pretty awesome that he's doing that. And he's the question was posed about running backs, and I wanted to kind of bring that up. So who do you think, you see the situation right now, the running back room is completely stacked. So if the Chiefs were to have to move someone, who do you think that would be?
That's a tough one, because there's a couple different options. I think if they're going to move someone, it's going to be Gore. They're going to cut him. I don't think they're going to trade CEH unless someone's going to end up taking him, trading him probably a 3rd or 4th round pick for him. That's the only player I think that could actually be realistically traded. Anyone else could possibly be cut. I don't think they're going to get rid of Isaiah Pincheiro. They're not going to get rid of him. Yeah, sorry, Pacheco, my bad. Yeah. Pacheco, they're going to keep him. Gore will probably still be here, be on the practice squad. McKinnon, I think he's too good of a weapon, especially late in the season. We can kind of bring him in there. I don't see him going anywhere. So if there were to be a player that gets cut and probably gets put on the practice squad, it's going to be Gore. If there's a player that's going to be traded, it's going to be CEH, unfortunately. Yeah. But I don't see anyone taking CEH.
It's crazy. I have heard a couple of rumors that there was.
And then Rojo's still going to be here. He's not going nowhere.
He ain't going nowhere. But I heard a couple of rumors that CEH was, I guess, a target for trade for a defensive line player, and some picks. So if that comes true, then we'll see. But I don't know. Now that meaning we give up the picks for this certain defensive line player. So we give CEH and a couple of picks, just another team for a defensive lineman.
Is this an NFC team, an AFC team?
NFC.
NFC North?
Yeah.
Okay. That narrows it down.
Yeah. So
I think I know what you're talking about then.
Yeah. So if it happens, it happens, but they're loaded in that room. I mean, just loaded up in that room. So we'll just have to see what happens there. But possibly, I guess realistically they can keep everybody and put, like you said, put Gore on the practice squad. I don't see McKinnon signed, so I don't see him going.
Yeah, you need him at the end of the season. We saw what he can do in those bursts.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably were going to want him at the end of that season just in case.
Oh, yeah.
Mix him in there.
Definitely.
It'll work out for everyone in the end.
Yeah. I'm hearing some really good things about McCole Hardman.
Good.
That he's playing out of his shoes and, was practicing really well and being really attentive to the game and to the team. And he's really wanting to just improve himself and prove himself and improve himself, I should say. But I think we're going to see a different McCole Hardman this year with the weapons that they have now and without Tyreek Hill. This is going to be interesting because when you really think about it, yes, we gave up one of the best if not second best in the league. I would say him and Devontae Adams are the two best wide receivers in the league right now. But that's simply because of the targets that they've gotten, and they are damn good players. But we don't know really what McCole can do because he was limited for his first 3 years. Well, I can't say 3 years, but the last 2 years for the most part, he was limited. He did have a little rough patch, but his drop percentage was less than Tyreek Hill's last year. So I don't know, man. I mean, I think we're going to see a different McCole Hardman, and I think we're going to see him really explode, given the fact that he's fast and he's working on his route running. I think he's going to be able to really complement the offensive scheme as we have it now. What do you think?
I think McCole Hardman's going to take a next step up than what we've seen. I think he can really, really help this team. Now, as far as a deep threat, I don't know if he's going to be that guy, but I can see him being that short yardage situation guy. I think those bubble screens, jet sweeps, I feel like he should get a lot more of those this year as long as he can hold on to the ball. But I really think he can help this team. We saw him get his stride towards the end of the season, and he was doing really well. And then, unfortunately, the Chiefs lost. But other than that, he did really, really well. Yeah, so I think he can continue that.
I agree with you. And honestly, I mean, he could be that other threat that he's caught some deep passes, and he could be one of those guys that, sneaky fast and gets down there because they're worried about NVS or they're worried about Juju or, whoever else that may be out there at that point. So he may be one of those sneaky guys that pops out of nowhere at the end, down by the end zone and snags a pass. It's not like it's unheard of because he's caught some deep passes before.
That's true.
But he's got the speed to do the end arounds and, like you said, the jet sweeps and the bubbles and everything. I think he's got the speed to be able to get the yardage that we need, if not more. So,
do you think the Chiefs will bring him back after the season because this is the last year of his deal?
Well, I think what they're probably going to. Yeah, I think they probably will.
He's not going to get commanding any crazy money unless he goes off, which I think is very possible.
Yeah. And even if he does go off, I don't think he's going to get, you got to think it'd be his fourth year. I don't think he's going to get insane money because of course, everybody on their contract year does better, but he's also in a different situation that people are going to look at him as, okay, well, you did great, but how are you going to do in our system? Are you going to continue that? So if I think he would get a similar contract to Tyreek's first contract with the Chiefs. That's what I think.
3 years, 48 million, 16 a year.
Yeah, that's what I think he would.
You think he's worth that much?
If he has a great
I can't
year,
see the Chiefs giving him 16 unless he just goes crazy this year.
Well, I mean, you got to look at the market, dude. I mean, look what Kirk got, and he's nowhere near I don't think he's as good as McCole, anywhere near it. He just had more opportunities, but he's not as good. And I think he, looking at the market, yeah, he's worth 16. If he has a great season, he could pull 16 million a year. I don't think it'd be unheard of. So, look what Sammy got. His last year with the Chiefs was 16 million, and he's still not even in that high market range. And what is this, his ninth season in the league? So it's totally possible that he could get 16 million. And if he has a great season, I think the Chiefs will continue to, they want to keep young speed because you need it. And if you got rid of Tyreek Hill at 28, going to be 29 next year, or when the season starts, or somewhere in that time frame. McColl's only 24.
Yeah, he's only 24.
Yeah, he's got a lot of legs left. He's got a lot of time left. And really, he's fresh because when you really consider it, he hasn't
been utilized that much in certain areas.
Yeah, so I think that's a target. That you always got to have that fast guy, and he's that fast guy. So, if as long as he learns his, to open the lanes and run his routes, and again, if he does what he did last year and hung onto the ball, because if I'm not mistaken, he had a 2.9% drop rate last year.
He did really. I think he did better certain parts last season.
Definitely.
My only issue maybe is the fumbles. I know he always has a couple of fumbles in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I just hope he doesn't have those this year, because turnovers were costly for this team last year.
Yeah.
Nobody saw turnovers hurt this team more than the fans. We saw continually hurt the team. Offense was stalling week in and week out. So they have to limit the turnovers. That includes fumbles.
Yep. I agree with you. I think the one thing you mentioned that with Mahomes, and sometimes whether he'd be behind or maybe he'd overthrow somebody, his targets are always accurate. He would just either be a little behind or a little past. He was never like 50, he wasn't a Lamar Jackson 2 years ago where he was 15
just all over the place
and all over the place. He was just, a little short or maybe a little long. But I think with these bigger, taller wide receivers, that's going to help him tremendously. Because if he throws something high, they're going to be able to get up there and get it. And, a lot of these guys aren't, if it's short, Juju's been pretty good at coming back for the ball. He had to with Big Ben. So he got really acclimated to coming back to get the ball. So if there is one short for some reason, he might be that answer. So we just have to see how that works out, especially towards the end of Ben's career. Everything was short. He couldn't get the ball 45 yards and without cringing in pain. So I think it's a good thing. I think what we've done is I've said this over and over, but we really screwed the rest of the AFC up with the way we switched things around. We really did. So, and we got money sitting there. We got, I think, $14 million still sitting in. Do we still have 14 million? Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they signed a couple other guys today. Nothing really major. Guys who are going to be most likely, if it all pans out, practice squad, 2 special teamers, so not much.
Yeah. So it's not going to be huge. And I can see Veach spending. Well, I'll say this. I can see him spending $6 to $8 million of that money to get somebody on the defensive line, which I know he's still looking for, and we just talked about that. But if that happens, great. We need it. We still need depth there, and we need some help. Chris Jones needs some help. I can't say that Karlaftis is not going to be huge, because I have a feeling he's going to be huge, but you still got to have depth, and
you do need that.
Yeah, so I don't see Veach going into the season and going an entire season with 14 million in cap space.
I'm a firm believer they got to sign Sue. Put him next to Chris Jones. You need the guy to help disrupt.
Yeah.
I really don't think the other guys on the roster like Anadi or Wharton can really help sustain those reps and help, especially with not Wharton, I already said his name earlier, but Colin Saunders. Just look at what we've seen. I'm like, they need another guy in there.
Yeah.
And they didn't draft one. And there were some really good ones, in my opinion, that when Keith and I were going over their draft board, there were some really good guys that were still available, didn't get taken. But something has to change because you can't be sack nation or your pressure nation, with all due respect, because you have not got any sacks.
Yep. Hey,
they've been mostly pressures and then basically broke tackles they can't hold on to the guy. So
exactly. Well, I will say this. I've heard some awesome stuff about Frank Clark.
So,
it sounds like he is just determined as hell. And
I hope he is, because we need him. I mean, he looked like he lost a lot of weight, looks a lot faster. I'm hoping he can come back and really help us, because the Chiefs really need some help.
Yeah, they definitely do.
I don't know if they're going to keep him after this season, but he was able to cut his contract in half. They might be able to work something out, but this would be a great turning point for him if he could turn it around and get some more sacks for this team.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think the thing, too, is that he sees the Chiefs are working with him, too. Yeah, it was team friendly to cut the contract in half because he knows he wasn't going to be able to get that even close to that money anywhere else, even on a 1-year deal coming off of his last season. But they're working with him, and I think he sees that, and they've rode with him with his troubles. So even though they really weren't, I mean, I guess if it had been in any other state, it would have been a different story. But and I think, if I'm not mistaken, both charges have been dropped now. I know one was definitely dropped and the other one was continued like 3 times. So I don't think they're going to end up charging him with anything. So I think it's going to end up, I think he's going to end up being a surprise for a lot of people.
Okay.
From what I'm hearing, he's playing, he looks good and he's shredded. He's back to his mindset's clear. So I think he's going to be one of those guys that everybody needs to watch out for. So that'll be a huge help on that line.
Oh, will be. If he can really help out. But if they can add a guy like Sue and Frank Clark goes to that level and Karlaftis does really well, and say Wharton steps in and does really well, same thing with Nadi, you got a really good defensive line that the Chiefs have not seen in a long, long time.
Yep. And like we said a million times, that's your catalyst right there. If if your defensive line breaks down, then you're going to see the rest of your linebackers and then your secondary breakdown. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that it's just a well-oiled machine that starts from the beginning and works to the end the way it's supposed to. So, and that's honestly, I mean, we've seen this defensive line issue for since
in the last 2 seasons. After the Super Bowl, they have not got any. After the Super Bowl, they won. The Chiefs have gotten not many sacks at all.
No. And their pressures were there to a degree.
Sometimes they didn't get pressures, which
sometimes they didn't get
makes
any.
no sense.
Yeah. So there was a debate going on, by the way, about what teams would regress this year and what teams would flourish or I guess excel. And one of the teams that was posed was the Bills, and 2 of them, I should say, the Bills and Cincinnati. I think both of them are going to regress. I think Cincinnati more than the Bills, but that division with the division the Bills are in has gotten better. I don't know about the Jets, but I know New England's gotten better, and so has
Miami's elevated a little bit.
Miami's elevated a little bit. I don't know how well they're going to do, with new coaching and new this and new that and everything else that they've got going on and everybody gelling. But and if two really steps up and does his job, but it's going to be a tougher division. And I don't see what Buffalo did to enhance their team. They lost a couple of players and they didn't really do anything to bolster it. I don't know about you, but I didn't see much.
I mean, they signed Von Miller, and then they also got a good running back in the draft, Dalvin Cook's brother.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've improved in a couple different areas. The Chiefs did, however, jump in front of them and took McDuffie that they wanted. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the Bills are still going to be. I would not be surprised if they are there at the AFC Championship game at the end of the year against the Chiefs. I would not be surprised. I think the Bengals are going to regress. The Bengals probably will win their division, but I don't see them going as far in the playoffs. But I really believe the Chiefs will play against the Bills again, if very possibly. Because when you look at it, the Bills and the Chiefs are the only 2 good teams in the AFC that can stay to that level. Colts are kind of an unknown. We don't know what they're going to do. They might be able to do something. The Chargers, I mean, the Chargers probably going to charge her, unfortunately. The Broncos, I mean, I don't know what Russell Wilson's going to do. So there's a lot of unknowns. But I really believe when it's all said and done, the Chiefs and the Bills will be in the AFC Championship game, or they will play each other in the divisional round. One of the two will happen.
Yeah.
Or one of those teams won't make it out of the divisional round as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's always a sneaky team in there.
What do you think about the Ravens this year?
Nah.
Yeah.
They're not. At this point, the Ravens, they had their run for 2 and 3 years, and that window is closed.
Yeah.
That window is no longer open unless they completely change. No receivers want to play there. It's not Lamar. From I saw an article, they were saying it's Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator. And the way it looks now, unfortunately, I don't know if Lamar is going to be there, but if he's not there, the Ravens are going to go through that same process all over again. Yeah. So it's just one of them things, unfortunately.
I don't know, man. From what I'm hearing, if they were that interested in signing Lamar, they would have done it already. And
oh yeah, they would have done it. You don't let a guy like that sit.
If they were interested in signing him, they would have done it. And they spent a lot of money in other areas, and they let people go.
Well, they just bolster up the defense. I'm like, the defense is not scoring points for you.
Yeah,
which I'm still,
but they're not scoring,
and that makes no sense. When you have these good free agents on the market, they go to the Ravens. I'm like, okay, you realize they're not going to do that well. Are you just going for money, or are you going to win a championship? Because I mean, it's their decision too at the end of the day, which I completely understand. But it's kind of like, you don't want to go to like a really good team that's proven. They may pay you a little bit less, but you can make it up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm still kind of confused on why the Chiefs aren't really getting all the great free agents. You would think Von Miller would want to take a pay cut. Certain other players in different aspects we saw throughout last season. I just feel like that effect that we saw the Patriots get for many years was going to come to the Chiefs. And maybe that's just kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but I'm hoping something like that could happen. But I feel like if you have Mahomes as your quarterback, you've seen what he's done the last 4 or 5 years. Why not come?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a big, with the Von Miller deal, that was honestly.
Well, they overpaid him like
way
crazy.
Overpaid him.
And I understand why.
Yeah.
I understand why.
Yeah, I mean, most of it is because they didn't want him to come here, and he
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, he would have come to the Chiefs. I mean, he would have loved to end his career with Kansas City, but I mean,
he didn't want to turn on the money. I mean, I don't blame him.
That's a lot of money. That's
$230 million.
Yeah, that's a huge contract for a guy that's 33, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. That was insane. I thought that was a pretty. I don't know, almost like a costly mistake to a degree, because it's a long-term contract with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got a quarterback that's supposed to be your franchise quarterback that you haven't given a contract to, and you don't have the money now to give it to him. And that kind of shows me that they don't really want to sign him.
You don't think they're going to sign Allen long term?
I don't think. No, I'm talking. Yeah, I don't think they're going to sign Allen long term. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got that. I'm completely thinking. I'm off track with the teams. I was thinking. Still had Baltimore in my head. No, I think Von Miller got way overpaid by them by the Bills, because they didn't want him to go to the Chiefs or anybody even contending with the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be us or somebody in their division. That's a huge contract for a 33-year-old. I mean, it just is.
It is.
It's a big, long contract for somebody of that age. And I'm not saying you can't play that long. Or I love the guy, and I think he's a great individual and he's a great player, but I don't know, man. He's had some injuries, and what's his 12th year in the league? So that's I don't know. It's just I
just wonder how long he's going to stay on that contract in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I just wonder how long is he going to be there, because eventually he's going to get cut.
Yeah. Well, it probably is. What was it, a 5-year deal?
I think it's like a 6-year deal, but I don't remember, but I think whenever he signed his deal, there was a tweet something was going around saying this is really just a 2-year deal. So he's going to get cut after 2 years. Basically, due to the money, the way it's signed up, and when they can cut him anytime, it's basically a 2-year deal. I don't know how 100% true that is, but I remember seeing something like that.
I don't see how on a 6-year deal at $230 million, I don't see how you can cut him in 2 years. I mean,
yeah, there was something. Basically, it seemed like he wasn't going to last that full 6 years. He's going to last 2 to 3 to maybe 4 years of that contract. But at a certain point, they're going to cut it off. Well, like they do with every player.
Normally, I would say, if it was, say if it was a 5-year deal and you're going into your 4th year, I could see that, or even sometimes even in your 3rd year, but I can't see him getting cut after 2 years on a 6-year deal with that kind of money. I just can't see it happening because they're going to be, if they are, they're not going to be able to sign Allen. They got to pay his ass off. So, I mean, and nobody else is going to take him for that. Nobody else is going to pick that contract up. That's for damn sure. Unless he just balls out like none other.
And he might have a good year or two. I just want to see if he can sustain it too.
Yeah, that's going to be insane. Just thinking about that, just like, wow, unbelievable.
And I think it's probably 3 to 4 years, but they're going to, there's no way he's going to last all 6 years until he's 39. That's just not going to happen.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not unheard of. I mean, James Harrison played until he was 38, I think. Maybe he was 39, 38, 39, and he was still playing at a high level, but he's a different animal. That guy was just totally different in every aspect. He could probably come out right now and play. He's been retired for 2 years. So I don't know. That was just a crazy contract. Getting back to Baltimore really quick, though, they made some moves, and that's where I got off track. They paid a lot of people, and they signed a lot of players, and then they moved some players without letting Lamar know, especially his weapons. He found out on Twitter.
Yep.
And I've kind of asked around a little bit about it, and I've kind of gotten the same response, is that, the team's basically not 100% on him. So if that's the case, he should probably already know that. And especially since he hasn't been signed and they've done everything they've done to basically not only disrespect him to a degree by cutting his players without letting him know, but then to sign other players to larger contracts. And he's still sitting there waiting for his contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's fair. That's fair. Because you saw he lost his wide receiver, which was not good for him at all. Marquise Brown. Also, they signed guys like Williams, who was from the Saints, another big deal. They drafted another good defensive player. So it's kind of like the offensive weapons really aren't there. Yeah. So I'm not really for sure what they're going to do offensively this year, but there's a lot of question marks.
There really
is. And I don't know if Lamar is not going to be there. I don't know what team would pick him up or where he would possibly go. But I think he would have success probably somewhere else, where a team that will invest in him and actually get him more weapons and is better spending. Because it's just the Ravens are always getting defensive weapons, but like it's not getting you anywhere. No. And that's something that just has not made any sense to me at all.
No, this is not 2001. I mean, their defense ran their team, but it's different.
You can't do that today. The offenses are just too powerful.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to see a 2000 Ravens defense ever again do what they did. No. The game has completely changed.
Yeah, it's completely changed. It's evolved into something that, defenses don't have the right to play to a degree, the way they're supposed to play, and offenses are they're just way too powerful. It's an attack game now. It's an air attack game that your best bet is to have a great defensive line and some really good corners and safeties, because that's really where you're standing at. And safeties and corners have to be very diligent, because the refs they're ready to throw the flag at any moment. Now, I did have a conversation with somebody that we both know, and I was right about what went on during that Cincinnati game. And also when we talked about how the refs didn't have one New York, stoppage, or they didn't do a replay, they didn't do anything, along with the Cowboys. And also I talked to a couple other people in New York, and they are revamping a lot of the referee crews.
Well, that's good.
So
they need to do that.
They're changing some rules, and they're going to do a lot of different things that will hopefully help. I mean, it really, it's like I was talking to that guy, I said, look, you're never going to be able to, you're always going to you're never going to find an unbiased referee. It's virtually impossible. One, they wouldn't want to be a ref if they didn't love football. Two, it's very difficult to find somebody that didn't grow up around an NFL team, or at least close, that, kind of like how Kansas City has Iowa, Southern
Mm-hmm.
Iowa, and Kansas is always,
Oklahoma.
yeah. So it's you're never gonna find that, but you have to figure out a way of getting these guys to be. If they're not going to be honest about it, then you have to really have New York tuned in more and have them more involved in what's going on during these games, because it wasn't just us that suffered. I mean, the Raiders, had that problem during the playoffs. The Cowboys had it in Week 17. It's just been one time after another after another.
I agree.
But they are making some changes, and things are going in a different direction. And the one thing that I posed to him, as I said, like you and I have talked about numerous times, I said, well, I said, a coach or a player will get fined if they go after a ref in a press conference, or if they say anything. But yet the rest could walk off the field and go home and not have to worry about a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I would understand, look, it's a fast game. Okay, I get this. I've been on the field and watched it. It's a fast game, and it's gotten a lot faster over the years. But again, if you're 5 yards from something and you're staring right at it and it's blatant, it's time to. That's when New York needs to step in and say, look, that was a bad call. It needs to be reversed. It should be a penalty. Let's move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of things that really need to go on. It instead of letting it happen and then trying to explain it after the fact, or not explain it at all, is not getting you anywhere. But when you have 20 people per game on a Sunday watching frame by frame, replay, and nothing's getting done, that's just a whole different ball game.
Yep.
So, but it looks like things are changing, and that's a good thing for everybody. What have you heard about OTAs or anything of that nature? Have you heard any good?
For what I've seen, the players are doing well. Mahomes is doing pretty good. Everyone is basically gone to OTAs and has done really well. There's been some good moments. I forgot who it was. I think it wasn't Lonnie Johnson. I forgot. Someone had 2 picks on the day, which was really good. Mahomes had some really nice passes. Kelsey did good as well. So I mean, it's kind of nothing new besides the rookies kind of getting acclimated to the playbook. So we're really going to see, in my opinion, the main headlines that's going to be in training camp. There weren't no one was holding out, nothing big deal. Pretty much the team was just working and grinding, trying to get back to another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that stood out to me primarily besides the rookies doing well, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I heard NDS really picked up the playbook quickly. He's picking up the playbook really quickly.
Oh, that's good.
So that's a good thing. And I guess Juju's doing really well as far as picking up the playbook. So I don't know. I got a feeling, man. I don't know about you, but I got a feeling this is going to be a really good year. I think we're just going to throw a lot. We've thrown a lot of teams off, and Andy has a whole different side of the playbook than he's used the last 4 years, and I think you're going to see that now, and it's going to really throw some teams off. And I think
I agree with you.
Exciting. I mean, it's exciting just to think about. I hope that they start off strong. That's my biggest. I guess my biggest hope is that they start off the season strong. If they start off strong and they have a couple of lull games in the middle of the season, okay. But I don't want them to have another start of 3-4. I just don't want to see that.
The one thing that concerns me, though, is whenever Spags gave his press conference saying, well, expect the defense to be slow. At this point, I really don't think the defense should be slow. I think they should be more acclimated to what they've been doing and be a lot better. For the first 8 weeks, a lot of issues, that shouldn't happen again, because that's where you get in trouble and you start losing games. So he has to change his scheme or figure something out, because he's not really high on my list of people I'm hoping that will be here next year, just based on what we've seen in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do know that there was kind of a little bit of an ultimatum put down as far as Spags was concerned, and they almost did it this year, and they've already got somebody in mind if it doesn't work out for Spags.
Well, if it's another one of Andy Reid's friends, I don't see much really changing.
They actually have no real, I guess, that big of a connection. I know who it is.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's surprising.
And, I mean, Andy's got connections with everybody, but it's not that big of a connection, I guess I should say, which is helpful if that's the case. that goes back to something I wanted to bring up really quick. Let's go back to this Tyreek Hill comment about him not letting him leave for his grandfather's surgery. When have you ever seen Andy? I mean, he's loyal to a fault and he's nice, nicer than any head coach in football. He's allowed things to happen that shouldn't go on. He's helped people out, whether it be coaches or players, even though they've done things that they may not have, that most teams would have launched him for. He has still helped these guys out and continued to move forward. And that's a great example right there. So why would Andy not allow him to leave?
And see, I'm not really for sure because you only did like a 30-second clip of it. So I'm not really for sure what all transpired. I was very surprised when I heard that. So I don't know if it was some miscommunication, but that's just kind of the way he was feeling.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have another Shady McCoy situation that like we had talked about before, and then he came out and said it himself. And you never know. It may come out later on down the line. I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you. I'm really surprised that Le'Veon Bell hasn't come out and said something yet.
Well, he did say he didn't want to. Did he? Was he the one who said he'd rather retire than being in Kansas City?
He said he'd rather retire than play for Andy, but I don't believe he was talking about Andy. I really don't. I've talked to a couple people that are kind of close to him to a degree, and they said that he wasn't talking about Andy. He was just pissed off at the time and said some things that he shouldn't have been saying. But it always, it sucks because it always boils down to one person, and it seems like one or two people in the coaching staff that has this last year or so that have caused problems, and that's not normal for an Andy Reid system.
Yeah, it's not normal at all.
Not normal. So I think with the addition of Nagy and getting rid of Madison and the other things that they've done, I think that's going to bolster their morale. It's hard. It's hard to imagine this team without Tyreek Hill on the field. But again, I can also envision what it's going to look like without him on the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he's not going to command a lot of targets. The ball's going to be spread around to many different players, which I felt like our team struggled with. There wasn't really another clear option besides Kelsey and Hill.
Yeah.
We would have guys that would step up, but then we would see is sometimes those guys didn't step up. Now we got a lot of different options. So I think the Chiefs will be fine.
I mean, they made such a transition to spread the ball around. There's so many extra targets now that we didn't have. And even like you said, the targets that we had weren't really viable targets. And I'm not talking about McCall Hardman, but when you really look at it, I mean, Pringle did okay. He was he had his spurts. D-Rob had his spurts. I'll always like D-Rob no matter what, but he had his spurts. Even though he was, a little dyslexic and ran backwards sometimes, but I still think that he's, a good guy. And I think he was, he had some dynamic catches. He had some really bad plays. So they didn't have that spread of really good players like they do right now. I mean, you got to think about it. You get rid of one in Tyreek Hill to sign three that are just phenomenal. And then you still got Kelsey, and then you bring back in Jody, and then you add hopefully Josh Gordon makes it. And then we're hearing so many good things about these rookies. It's going to be difficult to see what happens with Josh. I'm hoping and praying that he makes the team. I want him to make the 53 no matter what. I just really want him here. I want to see him succeed. I think that's the biggest thing with me is I want to see him succeed. And that's just, I think more of a personal thing than it is anything else. I just love to see the man succeed. And I think he will. I'm hoping he will. There's a lot of people that are doubting him and doubting the fact that he may not make the team, or doubting that he will make the team. But I have a hard time believing it, man. I think
he has a possibility of making it.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be interesting. We just got so many options. It's gonna be sad to see who gets cut because there's a lot of a lot of great players on this team, especially at the wide receiver position.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be. I tell you, I'd like to be like I said before, I'd like to be a fly on the wall, but I definitely would not want to be in the room to be the guy that making those decisions.
That's true.
I just don't. I wouldn't want to be. I think Andy has, when it comes to his heart, if he sees something in Gordon and Josh that makes him feel as if he's going to produce and do well, he'll keep him.
Yeah.
So
maybe on the practice squad. I don't know.
He can go to the practice squad another year.
I mean, I have a feeling he has to be studying. Well, he has to have had studied the playbook all off season.
Oh, guarantee it.
So I don't know.
And it's going to be interesting. Everybody I've talked to said he's really wants to be here and he really wants to play. So it's hard to see him get cut. It really is. To me, I mean, you got Cornell Powell. I don't know. I haven't heard a whole lot about him yet as far as what went on during OTAs. Did you hear anything?
I didn't hear much about him either.
So it kind of makes me wonder if he stepped up the way he said he was stepping up, because I haven't heard anybody else coaching wise or anybody that I've talked to say that he's, other than I had a couple of people say that he really learned the playbook well, but that didn't necessarily translate to the field yet. That was during, as we talked about on the show before. So we don't know what he's going to be able to do or not do.
And I mean, when you look at all the wide receivers, to pick 6 to 7, it's a hard list, to be honest, because I really want Cornell Powell to make it, but I'm like, Justin Ross, you got to let him be on that roster. See what we're going to do. Gordon, Hardman, Sky Moore. I mean, it's a lot of players. It's very interesting to see what's going to happen.
Man, I mean, I guess they could go, they can go hard and heavy and end up with 7 wide receivers. I don't know if they do it, but
I don't see why not at this point.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, you got the quarterback to reach any one of them, and as long as they can pick up the playbook and do their thing, you may stick a couple. Maybe you will stick a couple of the maybe rookies on. Maybe a Cornell Powell go back to the practice squad again, kind of like how Jody did for 2 years. You just don't know yet. So we'll just have to see what happens, but it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. I'd hate to see any of them go. I really would. I mean, we've got such a great wide receiver room.
Oh, I agree.
I got, my opinion is probably one of the best ones in the league. So it's going to suck to see any of them go, but we'll just see what happens. I don't know.
For sure.
It'll be a tough ride. I heard you guys had some hot weather today.
Yeah, it was very hot. Very, very hot the last couple of days. Not fun.
Yeah,
I've been inside in the basement with the AC.
Yep.
So
yeah, they said the heat index in Kansas City was 106, and I thought, wow, that's my weather
at all. It's not fun. I'm like, this is not good. I was outside with my brother earlier, and we were dribbling the basketball, and we were outside for 10 minutes, and we're already drenched in sweat. I'm like, yeah, this is not it. So,
and you know what's funny is that everybody always hammer. I was talking to Kathleen, one of our followers on Twitter. She's awesome, and she lived in Denver for a while, and she knows the difference between leaving and seeing the difference in humidity. And when I was in Kansas City for those 50 days, man, the humidity was kicking my ass. And I didn't, it's crazy because I lived there for so long. I was born and raised there. And when I got back here, it was such a different transition because it was 107 today. It was 109 a few days ago, but it doesn't feel like 109. It's hot. It's like
probably because you're used to it.
Well, it's just a different kind of heat. It's crazy. But even like my dad that's now living with me, that's 95 years old, he'll say, wow, it's pretty warm out here, but he's not sweating. And he goes, but it does. I'm not sweating like I normally am. And I said, yeah, you don't, when you got 12% humidity, you're not going to sweat, or 3% humidity, So where Kansas City is 98% humidity when it's 98 degrees. And that's the difference. I guess it's so different in the climate. That's
true.
So, my wife and I were talking about it the other day, and we were talking about the thousands of things that we hate about living here. But the one thing I don't miss is that humidity. I just don't. I don't miss that.
Well, it's going to be hot at training camp for sure.
Yeah,
tell you that it's going to be hot.
Oh yeah. It's going to be smoldering. I mean, and it's crazy how the weather has changed, because like out here, this 109, 110 degree weather normally doesn't happen at the beginning of June.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the end of June, you start hitting about 100 and then it goes up from there. But the last 2 years, 105, 108, 110, we broke 3 records this so far in June this year. We've broken 3 records.
Oh, wow.
Record heat. Yeah.
Where do the Raiders practice at when it comes to training camp? Are they still in Vegas?
Yeah, they got their own facility here.
Oh, okay.
So it was built down in I believe it's Henderson, which is a suburb of, well, it's a city, but it's like a suburb of Las Vegas. But,
okay.
Yeah, and they practice outside, which is different. But they were when it was, though. In fact, it's weird because McDaniels, he thought they did. His excuse was he thought they were doing so well, he let them off the last 2 days of OTAs, and so they didn't have to come in.
Oh,
and
wow.
I think it was just because it was 109 degrees. If you really want
possible,
because he's not used to that. He's been in New England for what, and then in Denver for that short period of time. So this kind of heat he's not used to. This is a different heat. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the highs. I know it's been pretty warm in the East Coast, but I don't know what the highs normally get there. I think it's 90s for the most part. I don't think it ever gets to what we get for 3 months a year, which is 105 plus. I don't think that happens.
Yeah.
Although Sunday, it's crazy. Today was 107 and Sunday is going to be 92, which is going to feel like 80 in Kansas City. So, it's a great thing.
Well, I'll be in the air conditioning, my friend.
Yeah, I will be too. So it'd be a good Father's Day, I guess. But yeah, so, and this is the first day that I've spent with my father on Father's Day since 2012.
Well, he'll be happy. He will be happy.
He'll be very happy. So, but anyway, man, I don't know what else we got to talk about, dude. I mean, it's going to be a interesting season. We got some. We might as well put it out there really quick. If anybody wants to write or do any kind of video graphics or editing, DM us, email us at chiefsfocusweb, or you can actually email us at contact@chiefsfocus.com. It's easier to remember. And send us in some sample articles and samples of what you can do, and we'll go from there. But
and I'll also just DM us too. That's fine as well.
DM us on Twitter. We're just, we're looking and we're growing exponentially, and we want to continue to grow. So we need some good writers and some good graphic designers and people of that nature. So if you guys want to send us anything in, please do, and we will get right back to you. And we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But with that being said, what else you got?
I think that's pretty much everything, man.
All right, man. Well, make sure everybody check us out on Twitter, Instagram. Give us a follow. Make sure you follow our website because things are changing and getting better by the day. We're on Newsbreak, by the way. We're on Quora. We're on, I think, 3 other now media outlets. So you can check us out pretty much anywhere. LinkedIn, doesn't matter. We're everywhere. So make sure you give us a follow and check out our content and subscribe. That's all we do it all for you guys. So that's all we need. Oh, by the way, I think we're going to do, I thought about this and I probably haven't even mentioned this to you, but I think we're going to maybe do a summer giveaway. What do you think?
That's not by me. We can do one pretty soon.
Yeah. So anybody that listens to the show, remember that. Give us a follow. Tell your friends to give us a follow because we're probably going to do a summer giveaway. We've got some things sitting around, and we're going to try and give some lucky fans something they want. So with that being said, I hope everybody has a great weekend and a great Father's Day for that matter. And we will talk to you guys soon.
See you next time, guys.